Alright, and we're back with part 2 of Concept Quest with Pokemon Arceus. Is it Arceus? Arceus? I'm assuming it's Arceus. We're gonna make our own Pokemon trainer. No gameplay this time. There was a lot of the game last time. I'll figure out how to balance it. I think I should treat it more like a trailer for the art versus doing the whole gameplay. Maybe when we get bigger, I could make an entire channel separate from this that's just dedicated to going through the entire game. But for now, I want to focus on the art, and this is what we're going to do today. So, same as the first episode, we're going to start going through reference and trying to draw it so we can add some things to our visual library. Pokemon Arceus has a traditional, like, old school feel, so a lot of old Japanese themes in their clothing. You know, he goes into the past in Pokemon Arceus, so we have to use that in our costuming and telling our story of our character. So I went and found some reference that had some interesting... This is kind of like a modern take on those ties that are going across her chest. But it is still a very traditional look, but a modern take. So I'm starting to take some unique aspects of that and learning about them so that I can add them to my character. I considered just doing any kind of Pokemon trainer, you know, but I wanted to stay true to the Pokemon or the Concept Quest ideas, that we do something that fits in this world. And in this case, the Arceus world, it's not modern Pokemon, it's Pokemon in the past. So we have these traditional Japanese themes. You can see in this one, this is very different as well. It looks super cool. I love this. It's a modern fashion show, so I'm not sure who would wear this in public, but it is cool as heck. Yeah, that belt looks really amazing too. But I love the shoulder pads, those triangle shapes that make you change the shapes of your shoulders and everything. Those look really nice. And the hair. The hair is really interesting too. So I'm just adding this stuff to my visual vocabulary, my visual library, so we can make a really cool character. And I actually do bring it to a finish this time, and it looks pretty good. Thankfully, Pokemon has a rather simple style, so it wasn't too crazy. It didn't have to go deep into rendering. There was a lot of cleanup. But these shapes are helping me think of ideas for the next character. And when I look at these, I'm always thinking of what shapes are, you know, I'm not trying to make the most perfect drawing. I'm looking for the shapes that define what this character is. Now this isn't an... I do that definitely more with the character designs, which was the previous episode where we drew from characters, because someone designed that. Someone literally thought of their shape language and designed that. But for Runway, at least, someone did think of that as well. Someone was thinking of the shape language. They're designers as well, so it's not lost on fashion designers to do these same kinds of things. They didn't try to overwhelm you. There's very clearly a triangle and square shape language, or triangle and rectangle shape language. You see the rectangle in the belt, in the bottom part of the hair, but then it splits into that triangle at the top part. He has the triangle collar. Yeah. So now we're going to start developing our own character. I did draw some more references, but there's just too much to draw and to keep going. So I want to make sure I show you guys everything, or as much as I can. So I picked a couple of pieces of the reference that I had, and I tried to go from there. You can see I want to play with that sort of side cut that I drew from the first girl. Except I'm changing it a bit and sort of adding these tassels, like they're button tassels, and that's how it attaches together. And I really like this heart shape that I've made in the collar. From the top right piece of reference, it had this very, it was a diamond shape. I changed it into a heart, and then I sort of flipped the heart over for the pants. But I struggle to know what to do with that for a while. But yeah, I'm thinking the same thing as we were thinking with the reference. Like, how can I repeat that heart shape? And that's why I'm trying to sort of repeat it in the pants. I don't want to get rid of that heart shape on the pants. So I'm like, how do I keep this? How do I not ruin it? Can I do some overlapping business? And a lot of design is going back and forth and figuring out what you can do. Now you can see, I kind of have two shapes, which is this heart shape and these sort of elongated rectangles, which you have on her arms. So I figured, why not put it on her legs too? And then I tried to replicate that same shape language even in her sandals with the heart. And I'm really struggling what to do with this belt so that it doesn't get ruined. Eventually I am going to figure it out. I realized that I could echo that same shape in the collar right down there, and then just have a little very simple belt. Something very like almost string for the most part. Here it is. Yes. And that looks really good. That's a solid concept. I would have run with this, but I wanted to do more, a couple more, just so that I had a couple other ideas. And I did one that you won't see here that basically looked like Sora from Kingdom Hearts, and or it started to look like him, and I was like, this doesn't work, so I scrapped it and just made this second one. But I like this second one too. My biggest issue here is that I did not think about what kind of character I wanted to create. I was just sort of, how do I want to connect these costumes and create something unique? And you should really think of the story of the character. It doesn't always have to be the story, but at least the kind of key elements that you want to include for your character. Like, you can see the guy above there that we drew that's like the leader of the village in Pokemon. He's got that big beard and the giant coat. He's kind of like this old wise leader, and they sort of went with those shapes. Reliable shapes are squares, but he has some triangles in there as well, because he's still got some edge. He's not just like a plain reliable guy. He's tough. So you're starting to develop some story, and that's what helps you develop your character. And And for these first two, I didn't do that. And that was a mistake. And that's why, more than likely, I'm struggling so hard with the second design. The first one, I got lucky, really. And the second one, I was just struggling. I did not know what to do. He kind of reminds me of Lieutenant Surge from the first Pokemon game with the... he was the lightning Pokemon gym leader. So, oh my gosh, flipping around all that reference. So this time I am thinking, I was like, I kind of want an old grandpa, like a happy grandpa guy. And I'm putting in this kind of fluffy hair because I found the Growlithe over there in the reference. They changed his design for this new game. And I did start to give him very poofy hair like Growlithe, but I realized that the last game had a character like that, so I was like, I want to change this. I don't want to just do some also signature white guy just because Growlithe has a lot of white. So I wanted to play with a darker skin color, and I thought dreads would be really interesting, and I had this piece of reference that has really cool dreads, and I put that in and it looked really cool. So now I'm starting to think of the story, and I'm like, okay, this guy has Growlithe, and they're fire Pokemon. He's kind of playful but aggressive, so I'm imagining him being super ripped so that he can handle these intense Pokemon, especially when it evolves the Arcanine form. And Pokemon Arceus looks intense. It's very spiky. So I want him to be this big old grandpa guy. He's kind of wise, but he's strong as heck. Kind of like the leader above. He's got that wise nature. I almost gave him a cape. But then I thought it would be cool if he just had this little like scarf flowing down, because the cape would get in his way. But yeah, he's a Pokemon trainer at heart, and you know, in Pokemon Arceus, they're all out in nature with them, so he really is out there like tussling with his Pokemon, and that's how he's getting so strong. And that's what I'm imagining for him. So I'm just trying to finish up the design here. His shapes are definitely these. You can see it in the dreads and the pants. The scarf is this long rectangle shape that's kind of has a point to it. And it's in his collar. I'm looking at the reference to figure out his pants. I wasn't sure what to do. And then I ended up doing some sort of like karate belt kind of thing. I'm looking around. Who has a good belt? I can't think of what to do because I'm trying to replicate those circle shapes that Growlithe has, and it's just not looking right. They all look weird. And there's the karate belt, and I'm like, ah, yes, this works. Perfect. I don't want anything to be, you know, gaudy on him. There should be no, like, metal things that could get caught up on his Pokemon when he's tussling with them, you know? Almost gave him a headband, but I thought that was a little cliche, so I stayed away from that. This guy literally would probably rip his shirt off if he had to take care of his Pokemon. And I imagine the scarf is like a strong material, so he could use it to wrap it around things if he needed to. And now I'm starting to pick colors just right from Growlithe. I get the brown tone. I found out later that Growlithe's tail was not brown, it's actually white. It's just the lighting in this render. So happy accident, I guess, because it looks really cool. But yeah, I wanted to replicate those same colors, the reds. I also found out later that Growlithe is more of a orangey red, and Arcanine starts to bring in more of the deeper reds. I tried to change his color to more orangey, but it just didn't fit for me, so I kept him more red. It still fits story-wise because, you know, he would have had an Arcanine at this point. He's an old guy, trained Pokemon for a long time. And then I wanted to give his pants some detail. I still feel like something is missing a little bit in a lot of the Pokemon trainers. They have patterns on them. You can see the guy at the top left there, he's got a pattern on his hoodie. It's just a stripe. But yeah, you can see here that I did add these little like cloud curly shapes, which are the shapes that you see on the Growlithe, on his little chin beard. And I added to his beard as well. So you have these little like circles on his chin and on his scarf, and that felt like the pattern that made him unique. I also, you know, he's a rough and tough guy, so I didn't just want to go keep him, you know, the happy eyes where you don't see his eye at all. I thought about giving him like a scar, like when he was first learning, he really screwed up and got clawed over one of his eyes. Scar over the eye always looks cool. That also made me think I should add Growlithe in there and just be like, so people know that's why he got the scar. Plus it just looks cute next to him. And Growlithe has pretty simple shapes, even though I don't really know how to draw animals. It was rather quick. I don't end up rendering him because it took so long to render the guy alone. That was the point. I'm trying to make a Pokemon trainer, not a Pokemon. Maybe in the future, you know, when I'm a little better at this, we can do both. Designing a Pokemon trainer is fun, and I'm positive they're not going to stop making Pokemon games, so we will definitely be doing this again, I'm sure. So here I've gone ahead to sort of the cleanup phase of stuff, because I did things a really backwards way. I shouldn't have done it this way, but, you know, hindsight is 2020. Normally you would do clean line art and then fill in the back and make a clean layer so that your line work and everything is separate from the painting part of it. And I didn't do that because I wanted to go with the original pose that I had, and rather than redrawing it, for some reason I decided to just clean it up, which took so much longer. It's totally okay, guys, to like, I say that tracing is not a good way to learn, but you can use it to help you finish your job if that's what you need to do. Like, I could have very easily traced this out, done clean line work, and then done the clean values like I'm doing now. So I didn't have to go through and clean everything up perfectly, because it made it take a lot longer and it was just more tedious. Maybe it would have felt tedious to, you know, trace it out and redraw it and everything too, but it would have been clean for sure. And it gives you more practice just in general. You can make it so that the pose is even better. Usually when you redraw something, you can do it better the next time. Yeah, I want him to have big, beefy arms, so his wrists are... I have tiny baby wrists, but I want this guy to have giant wrists. He's taken on big Pokemon. I'm using a little bit of reference to help me with the arm, so I can get the anatomy a little better, make sure it looks nice when it's designed. This is TB Choi off to the left. She is amazing. I personally like my shapes to be a little bit more sharp, and she definitely has a lot more roundness to her shapes, so I am changing them a little bit, but I am getting the gist of the anatomy through her. And believe it or not, I did not use this reference for this pose or anything. I just found it in my characters folder. I have a giant folder of character designs so that I can go and reference different ideas when I'm trying to come up with my own. And after we did the sketch for this, I went through that folder and I was like, okay, who do I have that are big, beefy, old guys? And then I found this one and I was like, oh, that's perfect. He's already holding his belt. And actually the older guy above, that's the leader in the Pokemon Arceus, he's sort of holding his belt too, and I'll end up using him to reference the hand to draw it out, because I still struggle with hands. Probably you do as well. I'm just making, like I said, cleaning up, so I'm making a clean selection of the pants. And we're going to skip ahead to the cleaner area too, because you don't need to watch all of this. It's just cleaning stuff up. You know, the design is done, essentially. This is the rendering part, which is I'm still learning how to do. I just want you to see how I'm going through the process. And now we've jumped ahead. I've given him the clean lines. That top left piece of reference is official art from the game, so I'm using that as my reference, and pretty much everything is surrounded by a black line. That's the way that they've done that in the game, or for the concept art. The game models actually look a little different, but I like the concept art over the game models. So I'm trying to replicate that same idea here. Make sure everything looks outlined. I did struggle a little bit with the size of the outline. I made it too thin at first. I had to go back over. It was just, this is not the way that I should have done this. But you know, there's no one way to do things. This is still a legitimate way. It just will take you longer. And I figured it out, so it works. We're just working on some details here, making sure the shirt, I probably didn't have to put lines over the dark parts because you can't even see it anyways, but you know what? I didn't know if I would need it or not, so I just did it anyways. So you know, you see I'm going back over it because I felt like the line was too tiny, and when you back out you can't really see it. So now I'm going over it again. And unfortunately I don't end up doing the dog. I did clean him up. But I just figured it wasn't worth it. He's cute. But our goal is the Pokemon trainer. I like his face. It looks fun. And the beard. It's very much that like classic Zeus beard. You know, with it curls up. Maybe his name is Zeus. I actually like that. You are now named Zeus. Now I'm adding the shading and then he'll be done. And the 2 values will help it pop and just make it look more alive. and then we're done. And that's great. So I'm going to show you here the rough version, which looked really cool, and then the final. I think it came out pretty cool looking. It's rough in some areas, but it still looks really awesome at the same time. So I did what I set out to do. I hope you liked the Pokemon Trainer and enjoyed the episode. And I'll see you guys for the next episode of Concept Quest. Let me know in the comments if there's a game you want me to try, whether it's new or old. I'm always down. Until next time, have a happy and healthy creative process.